Thanks for joining us and attending the Clinical Research Recruitment Program Quarterly Workshop. Karen, Jacob, and I will be presenting today. Karen and I will kind of go back and forth, and Jacob will be presenting towards the end of our presentation. And we will be presenting about FYP, where clinical research meets social media, and we'll be focusing on our in-house social media services, which are just over a year old. Sorry, keeps popping up when people join. So we have several learning objectives and a lot to get through today, and we are really excited to share with you great information about our in-house social media services. Some of you probably have used our in-house social media services. Some of you might still be using third-party vendors like Bump and Build Clinical, and some of you might have not used social media services to recruit human participants to clinical research studies. And so wherever you fall on that spectrum, hopefully you will learn something today, and that's really exciting. And so like any presentation, we have a lot of information and a lot of learning objectives to get through today, but we are going to first discuss the development of the CU Anschutz in-house social media services, review our social media process, including how to work with us, our responsibilities versus yours, and what social media platforms we advertise on, present CU Anschutz social media and recruitment metrics for 2024, demonstrate how social media is an effective and inexpensive way to increase awareness of clinical research through 3 study examples, and then discuss the importance of CU Anschutz social media brand standards and compliance. We'll have time at the end of our presentation for questions, but Derek will be monitoring questions through the chat. So if you have any questions throughout our presentation, just submit them. We'll pause after we talk about these 3 big objectives each time, and to answer any of those questions as you're submitting them throughout our presentation. So feel free to answer or submit questions as we're presenting, and we'll try to get to them throughout the presentation. So CU Anschutz Medical Campus has been offering in-house social media services for just over a year. This started as a pilot program led by the Office of Communications, spearheaded by Megan Lade and Jacob Miller. This pilot program came about because it was brought to Central Research Administration's attention that a lot of clinical research teams were using the services, but were relying on third-party vendors or were doing it themselves. And so before this in-house service was started, it really needed to be piloted and shown effectiveness and shown that it was a resource that would be utilized by the CU Anschutz research community. And so because and it was also brought to our attention that a lot of the research teams that were utilizing those third-party vendors were either industry-sponsored projects or really well-funded studies. And the teams that were interested in using social media services were the research teams that were investigator-initiated studies or those smaller NIH federally funded grants that might not be able or didn't have the budget to really use those external vendors, because those external vendors are pretty costly. The average budget is around $4,000 to $8,000. And so we really wanted to see if we could start an in-house service that was more cost effective for our research community. So we understand that some teams may not still have the resources to pursue paid research advertising. So we have a wealth of information on our social media webpage. And this is on the right-hand side, just shows that webpage and the information that is readily available to all of you. So we provide steps when you want to use social media for research study recruitment. We provide guidelines for recruiting research participants through social media. We provide an overview of both using paid and free options. And we also go through some really important social media do's and don'ts. This webpage is readily available to all of you as a resource. And so you can find that on our website. Once again, if you have any questions as you look at this resource, you can reach out to us at Research Studies at CU Anschutz, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might think of. So say you've reviewed our social media webpage and you've decided or you think that you want to pursue paid research or paid social media advertising, and you want the clinical research recruitment program to support these efforts. But you still have some questions, and we still get some really frequently asked questions. And so before we get started on going over our general process, we figured we would go over some of the most frequently asked questions that we get. So what social media platforms do you currently advertise on? So we currently provide support for paid ads on Meta Ad Manager, which is the parent company of Facebook and Instagram. So when we build ads for you, your ads will go back both on Facebook and Instagram. We've been exploring options for expanding to different platforms. So we've recently had a meeting with Reddit, and unfortunately, expanding to that platform will not be cost effective to our current clientele, so our CU Anschutz research community. So the minimum spend for advertising for clinical research studies on Reddit is $10,000 per month or $25,000 per quarter. And so it's just not something that we will be able to do in any time in the near future. The other platform that we were looking at is Twitter. And so that is, I will let Karen kind of explain that. It's more of an algorithm issue, but Karen, do you want to kind of go into that a little bit?
Given just some of Twitter, or now known as X, just given some of the changes in policies and how that platform works, it would really just not be the best bang for your buck to advertise on there. The algorithm is just a little bit too, I would say, violent, for lack of a better word. And also, we're not able to share metrics on how it's done. It's really just not the best bang for your buck. As of right now, Facebook and Instagram is where it's at.
The next question, where'd it go? Do we need IRB approval for social media advertising? So I'm focusing on COMERB. If COMERB is your IRB of record, it does require IRB approval for social media as a recruitment method. So it needs to be in your protocol. However, if you're working with the clinical research recruitment program, additional review of social media ads, including language, images, video, audio, etc., is not required. So you can refer or reference the COMERB policy and procedures document section 13.9.2. So what that means is you have to get approval for social media as a recruitment method. We also encourage teams to at least submit the ads component form once, but additional revisions if we make changes pull down different images, make recommendations for different language and improvements in your language, you don't have to submit that ad components form again to COMERB with that change in their policy about 4 or 5 months ago. When should I reach out to the clinical research recruitment program if I want to work with you? So we're scheduling campaigns 6 to 8 weeks out, so you need to plan accordingly. And we also encourage study teams to reach out during study startup or just as early as possible. If you think you want to use social media as a recruitment method, we're happy to meet with you whenever to start the conversation. The sooner the better. And then finally, do I have to pay for your services? No, you do not have to pay for our services, which includes developing a social media marketing strategy for your specific study. You are only responsible for the cost to run the ad in Meta Ad Manager, which is set by you or your team. And the average campaign budget across our entire account is about $350 now. All right, so we'll pause here before Karen takes over and answer any questions that might be in the chat. Derek, can you help us out? Are there any questions yet?
No questions as of yet. John Heldon said, can confirm no additional review by COMERB is necessary if you're working with the clinical research recruitment program.
Awesome. Thank you, John. All right, so Karen.
Hey everyone, my name is Karen Parada, and I'm program been on the Anschutz campus for almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years and 3 weeks. And prior to being here, I actually worked in the Department of Neurology, and I see all of my fellow coordinators in the Zoom call today. So nice to see y'all. But social media, that's what we're talking about today, right? Working with our teams just takes a few easy steps. You'll really just start off by completing our social media intake form that's found on our website. We'll review that, schedule a meeting, get to work on your social media campaign, and before you know it, your campaign is launched. You'll be receiving an email from us to let you know how it did, and hopefully your inbox is very full with interested participants. But let's get into each step in just a little bit more detail. So about 1 to 3 weeks after you submit that social media intake form found on our website, we'll meet together and we'll review just like overall what your goals are for wanting to use social media, review any previous experience that you might have had with social media, as well as discuss budget, timeline, do we need any IRB approvals, and review kind of just when we're able to launch it and just next steps in general. Our team leverages its hard science background and recruitment backgrounds to pinpoint what are the key details of your studies. Why might you be struggling to recruit participants or anticipate those barriers before they happen? And what will potential participants engage with online given this information? We have a wealth of knowledge and we're really just able to pinpoint those details and put that out online so that you can reach the most potential participants as possible. If you decide to move forward, we will work together to come up with curated language and images for your campaign based on the information that you provided and the information that we discussed during our meeting. After about, I would say 3 to 4 weeks, our team will then present you with some final options to pick from. We refer to these as mock-ups, essentially what the ad will actually look like, the image that'll pop up on your feed when you're scrolling, the caption, and exactly what it'll look like. And we'll make any adjustments if we need to. From here, we'll wait for IRB approval if needed before actually officially launching. Submission and approvals are not needed for every study. If you've already submitted an ad components form for CoMERB and you're working with us, you don't need to submit it again, even if we're making revisions, just as Kylie mentioned. And if you haven't submitted this form, we're happy to work with your team and actually help you put it together before you submit. That way the approval process is just easier. And for those coordinators who have never heard of this form or have ever seen it, it is essentially a Word document that states that you want to use social media as a method of recruitment. This is the language that you'll use. These are the images that I want to use. CoMERB reviews it and just make sure that you're not violating any of its policies. And that's essentially what that form is for anyone who doesn't know. And we really encourage teams to reach out to us during that study startup process because we can help plan it all ahead of time and really make your recruitment period a whole lot easier. And again, if CoMERB is not your IRB of record, so if you're seating to a different university, our team has actually worked with teams that work with other universities in their studies, and we help them create the language and pull images so that it gets approved a lot quicker and a lot easier. So that's something that we're also able to do just in case your IRB of record is not on the CU Anschutz campus. After all of the final adjustments that are made, our team will email you about 1 to 2 weeks before your campaign and confirm the parameters that we previously discussed. This could be budget, where is the ad going to be located? Is it 25 miles from the CU Anschutz campus? Is it 25 miles outside of Fort Collins, Colorado Springs? Is it the entire state of Colorado? And then we will just confirm, make sure that everything looks good, and then our team really just takes it from here. We launch it and we monitor your campaign from start to finish, and this also includes monitoring and responding to comments or questions within 24 hours per university and state policies. Once your campaign has concluded, we will provide you with the metrics. This includes how many people did your ad reach, how many people saw it, how many people clicked on that learn more link that leads to your REDCap or Qualtrics pre-screener. Not only is this information useful for your team to really see how the ad did, but can also help justify recruitment costs to your sponsor or direct funding source. And again, if you have, or not again, but if you have recurring campaigns, we can also use this information to make adjustments moving forward if you have monthly or bi-monthly campaigns. As far as metrics go, we provide teams this information through Smartsheet. I like to explain it as a very, very fancy Excel sheet that it's interactive. And we share this to study teams so that they can pull the information down at any time. It's accessible to anyone that has access so that you can go ahead and justify those costs to your direct funding source. But we go ahead and we share that information with study teams. However, we do ask study teams to report numbers back to us. So how many people did you contact? How many people did you pre-screen? How many people did you enroll? Or how many people screen failed? This is all information that we need, and it's really vital because this shows that these ads are actually recruiting human participants. And we are then able to take this data and show the value of this free service to CU leadership in hopes that it does not go away.
Awesome. So we're going to take another pause here and see if there's any questions. Derek, how are we doing?
Yeah, we have a couple of questions.
Great.
The first one corresponded, I think, to your segment, Kylie, where someone asked, is it $350 monthly?
No, so we'll get a little bit more into this with my next couple of slides, but the typical, that average $350 budget is typically, well, our average duration is 6.5 days, but most study teams do a 7-day campaign. Most study teams do around $250 to $300 for a 7-day campaign.
Awesome. The next question is, do you ever support creating infographics or images that can be used to share on social media, but aren't something you then have to have a campaign that you run? I hope that makes sense. Happy to say more.
Oh, I get it. So you mean, do we help study teams create images that they could then use to disseminate on social media as they see fit? The answer is yes and no, but mainly yes. Apart from our social media services, we do have recruitment consultations, which is not really the focus of today's conversation. But we support study teams and we can help create things like flyers, and review other recruitment materials that are shared on social media. For example, recently we've been encouraging study teams to really tap into support groups for either patients or caregivers. So that is something that could be tied with our recruitment consultation services.
Our next question is the 6 to 8 weeks the time to get the first meeting or the time it takes to set up a campaign?
That's the time to actually like schedule out. So if you like reach out to us, I would say like that's availability on our campaign calendar. So if you had everything ready to go and it was approved and like green light, I would say it's 6 to 8 weeks out from that initial intake meeting, not to get the intake meeting on the calendar. Hopefully that makes sense.
We had a couple more trickle in here. The next one is, are the ads placed on the recruiter's personal social media page, or does CU have a page that you use?
Yeah, so we have the CU Anschutz Research Studies Facebook account. That's an account that we only use to run paid social media ads for clinical research studies here at CU Anschutz. We typically we also do page posts for all of the campaigns that are running, but how a paid social media ad is conducted is that those ads are being pushed out to individuals that meet the parameters that we're setting when we build the campaign. So for instance, if we set a geofence for certain parameters around the CU Anschutz Medical Campus or a specific city, then the campaign is only going to be pushed to individuals within that radius. So if we set a 30-mile radius around our campus, then only individuals within that 30-mile radius will receive the ad during that given time frame. So an ad will run from today till 7 days in the future, 30-mile radius for a different or a certain age demographic, then that's who's going to see the ad.
Okay. And the last question I see in here is for reviewing the ad component prior to submitting to Comerb, can we email you guys to set up a meeting?
Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We can definitely set up a meeting. Email is a really great way to get a hold of us. We'll ask you to fill out our little like intake form that captures data and how many people are using your services. Yay, data. But we'll go ahead and we'll set up a meeting, and we've been kind of getting into the habit of trying to come up with language before our meeting so we can actually discuss it during the meeting, get that all squared away and submit it. We might go back and forth a few times over email to really finalize that. But yes, emailing is a great way to reach out and set that up.
Awesome. And that's it at this time.
All right, thanks, Derek. So we're going to keep on going. Hopefully this gives you all a little bit more information. So we're going to present our metrics from just over the last year. So our in-house social media services are just over a year old. We launched them officially December of 2023, and we have supported a lot of research teams in just in just a year's time. So our numbers, and you can see we have received 59 requests. We've completed 96 campaigns for a total of 37 campaign rounds. And so that means that the typical research team is doing 2.5 campaign rounds. So the majority of teams are doing more than one campaign round for their study. So just over 2.5 campaign rounds. The average campaign budget, which I mentioned earlier, is almost $350. And the average campaign duration is 6.5 days. And the graph on the right is showing the number of campaigns for number of campaigns per month for the last year. And so as you can see, we typically average just over 9 campaigns per month, but you can see this graph shows you that there's fluctuation, or we've had fluctuation over the last year. And that's pretty much, I think we're going to have fluctuation year after year. I think November and December are going to be lower months. We're just going to not have as many campaigns for those years because we don't run campaigns during big holiday sales during the holiday season. We also don't run campaigns for other big events like the election this year because it's not advantageous for you all to for the research teams to run campaigns during those timeframes as well, because your budget will be competing against those other companies that are also running sales or running big events. And so we basically pause all campaigns across our account because it wouldn't do anyone good to be competing against the big box offices that are running sales and everything like that on Black Friday or during the holidays. So it's just important to also think about this timeline and think about your study and your study timeline and other events that are coming up throughout the year, and to plan accordingly if you do want to use social media as a recruitment method. So this slide displays the average social media metrics for our entire account, regardless of timeline. I'm not going to go into great details about this slide and about our numbers or about what these metrics really mean. The important metric that we really look at is the link clicks. And so the link click for the social media ads that we run for you is typically associated with your all study screener. So whether that is a RedCap or a Qualtrics screener, and that is really what we want the individual to click on. And so the higher the link clicks usually equates to the more interested individuals are in your study. So if they're clicking on that link, they're either wanting to learn more about what that study entails. And so we really are looking at what that is translating to for your individual study. One important thing to note is the cost per result shows the cost per number of link clicks. This highlights the importance of you all reporting numbers back to us. And so this cost per result is 51 cents, which is really great. But this cost per result doesn't equate to cost per completed study screener. And so this is really important for you all to actually report back the number of inquiries you received, the number of completed study screeners, the number of completed people and the number of actual people enrolled in your study. Because just because you have a huge number of people clicking on your link doesn't actually translate a lot of times to a huge number of people actually enrolled in your study. But we'll get more into that with some of the examples that we have. I like showing this or these two graphs because this shows the top graph shows the average link clicks by month, and the bottom graph shows the average reach and impressions by month. And this really just shows how far social media can reach and how many people social media can reach. And it really demonstrates with just a really small budget, with the average budget being $350 per a 6.5 day campaign, how many people you can potentially reach with your social media ad. And then the last thing we want to present to you before we go into some examples of social media campaigns is we reach out to you after the conclusion of your campaign to get some feedback, because our social media services are still fairly new. Once again, we're just over a year old, so we want to hear from you and learn how we can do better. Two of the questions we ask are, has the social media campaign allowed you to reach a broader or greater number of participants? We've received feedback from 15 research teams thus far. 73% agreed or strongly agreed that it helped them reach a broader population. 87% agreed or strongly agreed that it helped them recruit more individuals to their studies. 100% of respondents agreed or strongly agreed that our communication was timely and efficient. 100% of respondents indicated that the quality of our social media ads met or exceeded their expectations. And 100% of us respondents were very or somewhat likely to recommend our services to a colleague. All right, so we'll pause again before we get into some examples and answer any questions that might have been submitted. So Derek, any additional questions?
Yes, we have one so far. Someone asked, if individuals do want to share recruitment materials for studies they're working on, is there a compliant route to do that?
I guess I'm not if they want to share recruitment materials with us.
They didn't specify. That was Rachel Sheridan that asked.
Yeah, I can just add, so I just meant like in terms of sharing those kind of materials on our personal social media. If I want to like make a post on my personal Instagram saying like, I'm working on this study, you guys should check it out. Is there a difference in kind of compliance and approvals needed for that kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, I think before we get into the compliance and approval, I think the effectiveness is definitely something to keep in mind. Running an ad versus posting to like a very limited group of individuals has its advantages and disadvantages. As far as compliance, there's really nothing stopping individuals from doing that on their own. We just want to make sure that it's being done correctly. Obviously, we don't want the incorrect information to get out there. Typically, when we create materials, they are just for the ads. However, if individuals want to do it themselves, there's really no official university rules against it. We just encourage people to be very mindful of what they're sharing online, and making sure that the information is correct.
Yeah, and then there are university policies, like when we are running ads, that we have to respond to any comments or inquiries within 24 hours. So then it gets in, you get into this gray area where if you're sharing information about a study on your personal platform, and then individuals reach out and ask you questions about that study, then the onus is on you to respond within 24 hours to that. And then there's also regulations where if they're asking you specific questions about the study, that you have to take those comments if they're sharing information about their potential diagnosis to see if they're eligible for the study. You are supposed to take that correspondence directly offline and technically off the social media platform. So once again, like Karen said, there's no restrictions, and maybe Jacob, you can jump in. There's no restrictions per se with you sharing it on your personal account, but then there's a lot of kind of onus on you if that engagement gets a lot of questions and comments regarding the specific study. Jacob, don't want to put you on the spot, but would you add anything?
Actually, no, Kylie, I think you, answered that perfectly. I think, you all know your study's the best too. So I think that's a good, it's good to go off of that and kind of use, I think you're going to know a lot of the comments you're going to get. I would definitely be mindful and cautious when posting on your own personal, because that does open you up to a whole new, layer of comments when Kylie's team is, prepped and trained to handle those when it's done on that account. So that's all I would add.
Can I add a comment? You do need IRB approval. So an IRB needs to know where you're posting your advertising. So if if you plan to post it on your personal Facebook account, the IRB needs to be aware of that.
Thanks, John. Any other questions, Derek? I can't see the chat, so that's why I keep on asking you.
Oh, no, there are no other questions at this time.
Perfect. All right, so we'll get started with some examples of recent social media ads, and Karen's going to take it away.
Great. Okay. So we have a few recruitment success stories that we'd like to share. This campaign in specific wanted to reach individuals living with MS, and our team actually previously ran a campaign with them back in October of 2024, but they reached back out to us in hopes of reaching their recruitment goals, and they wanted to reach 300 completed surveys. This is an online survey study. When we met, the team, or not only did our team completely update the mock-ups, we've been working really hard over the last few months to just update and really spice things up from what we had been doing, and just taking what we had learned earlier in the year and applying that now. We also strategized a caregiver campaign to go along with it in hopes of reaching more individuals with MS and really tap into that support system that is very much alive in the MS community. In addition to that caregiver campaign, we also launched our very first video campaign. And Dr. Ryan Kramer has a passion for destigmatizing what MS looks like. So not just individuals in wheelchairs, but a wider variety of individuals and what they might look like. And that actually inspired a campaign to depict the faces of MS in hopes of reaching that broader group of individuals. And for video campaigns, it can actually really significantly enhance the ad performance. It also captures users' attention through visual storytelling, through videos up to 15 seconds. Think of your favorite Instagram or TikTok influencer, but just a little bit shorter and science-based. And short form videos can increase to a higher percentage of engagement and actually lower the cost of your ad by 8% per day, which is pretty great. And we can take a little look right now what that looks like.
Are you an adult living with multiple sclerosis? Join our online research study by completing a brief 15-minute survey and tell us about the unique challenges that come with living with MS. Share your experience for a chance to win a $250 gift card. Participate in our online research study today.
Great. Hopefully y'all were able to hear the sound on that one. But that was what our campaign looked like. And as far as how it actually did, the success to this story, in this little graph that we have here on the right, it actually compares the two campaigns that did individually amazing. And we can see that the recruitment and enrollment numbers from October shown in black. And the numbers from January in gold, with January yielding the best results. And this really truly highlights that while your recruitment goals as a study team stay the same, the landscape to reach those potential participants is ever changing. And we really need to stay on our toes and try to be innovative as possible to really reach those potential participants. This campaign wanted to reach breast cancer survivors who to have them participate in a nutrition and exercise program. And the campaign had a very limited budget of $150. And they ran two separate campaigns with us at that price, one for 5 days and one for 7 days. And the 7-day campaign, which ran for the same amount of money of $150, did not actually go as far when you look at the numbers. While January did yield more awareness, December actually was the one that yielded the largest number of inquiries and screenings, which is what we want, right? We want people to see the ad and we want people to be aware of your study, but we also really want to get you recruitment numbers. So this just goes to show that it's really important to tailor your social media strategies to the realities of your research study budget, and just know that not every campaign budget will react or will have the same effect as far as recruitment numbers go. This one compared to the one before, this is an in-person study that requires someone to make the drive from wherever it is that they live to our campus here in Aurora, versus the one before was an online study, and you can do it from the comfort of your couch on your phone. So that is going to look a lot differently, and we really need to make these considerations when we put together your campaign and also set a budget. And this ad, this is actually probably one of my favorite examples and recruitment success stories. This is a survey-based study that wanted to gather real-world data on psychedelic use among older adults. Previously, the study team was running ads on their official lab Facebook page. Unfortunately, their ads were reported by Facebook users, and their page was actually taken down, and there was no way to gain access to that account, and they weren't able to run ads themselves. They then reached out to us, and we were able to revamp their ads. And it's important to note that Meta has very strict policies surrounding ads, especially when it includes substances. Our business account that runs the ads is enrolled in a protection program that really enables these ads to be approved and not flagged and or taken down for mistakenly thinking that it was violating their drug and pharmaceutical policy, and that we're trying to sell a product when we're not. We're trying to increase access and awareness of this study. This policy really keeps those ads from being taken down, and we're enrolled in that program. Unfortunately, that study's Facebook page was not, and it was ultimately taken down. So this is, I think, a cautionary tale of being really aware of the policies that Meta has and how your lab or department Facebook page might accidentally be violating those and not having the necessary protections in place to run those ads. I think the next slide is that I think this also highlights kind of how running your own social media ad can go wrong, but also just the importance of being CU branded and compliant, which segues really nicely into our next topic with Jacob. And when we updated this team's mock-ups, we added real images of real individuals, we added music, We added language that was clear, simple, easy to use, and we also were able to link it directly to their Red Cap pre-screener, so that individuals didn't have to contact the study team to participate. They just completed all of that on their own, really automating that recruitment process. And the study team actually exceeded their goal by 632% for a cost of $1.37 per completed survey when we ran their ad. So not only did they look great, they performed really well, and we really just truly exceeded everyone's expectations on this.
So before we jump to Jacob, that's where I want to kind of go back for that cost per click was 42 cents for that December ad, where that cost per completed survey was $1.37. So we wouldn't know that information if the study team didn't do a great job in actually getting these recruitment numbers back to us. And so that's really where we work in close collaboration with you all to get those recruitment numbers so we can justify this free service as a resource to you all and show and demonstrate to CU leadership that this is a valuable service to the CU Anschutz research community. So we'll pause again before Jacob starts and see if there's any additional questions.
Yeah, we have a couple that came in. The
Okay.
first, do you know if reach campaign reach a blanket general population, or are there algorithms that target individuals that might have posted about their diagnosis on social media?
Yeah, so you can't do targeted campaigns or targeted paid advertisements for diseases or conditions anymore in Meta Ad Manager. That was taken away probably 3 to 5 years ago. Jacob might know the time frame a little bit better than me, but you can only do targeting on characteristics, I would call it now, and those are wide and varied. They go from like job titles and employment status, or not employment status, but employers. And we've tried to ask Meta Ad Manager to bring down a list for us. They have declined because I think that those kind of keywords and those characteristics that you can include in like your targeting is constantly changing with the algorithm uses. And so the teams that we've used that with, we kind of just do an additional meeting and we kind of go through that with them and kind of brainstorm together.
The next question is, COMERB requires specific ad components to be in the ad, such as the title and the COMERB number. Is this found in the caption of the ad, or is the COMERB policy different when using this recruitment program?
Yeah, so we don't include the title. Usually the title is very medically complex and scientifically jargony. The one thing that we do include is the COMERB number on the ad mockup. So that's one thing that we will include on all of our ads.
And the last question I see here is it better to run 2 shorter campaigns than 1 longer campaign?
Yeah, I'll pass that one to Karen. It kind of depends, but
yeah, the answer is it depends. I think it depends on budget. Are we running it on a weekend? Is there a competing holiday? Is there, other things going on? So it really does depend. We have seen success both ways. However, one thing to kind of keep in mind is that the longer we run a campaign, the longer those individuals that are seeing your campaign are seeing it potentially more than once. And our goal is to allow the most number of people to see that ad. So I don't want to receive the ad 4 different times in the span of 2 weeks. I'm going to get tired of it. I'm not going to click on it. I'm just going to, swipe in the other direction. So I think there's a really good balance, and our team will advise you on whether it's strategic to run, 1, 2, or potentially even 3 shorter ones over a span of time, or 1 long one at a certain budget. And that's something that we can look at. And we play around with the numbers and the dates and the budget on the back end to see exactly like the estimated amount of people that are likely to see your ad, but it really just depends. And that's a case by case basis.
Awesome. Let's get to Jacob because I want to be cognizant of time. Jacob, just let me know when you want me to go to the next slide.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thank you, Karen and Kylie. Hi, everybody. I'm Jacob Miller. I'm the social media manager here at CU Anschutz, and I'm based out of the Central Office of Communications on Kathy Green's team. And so, of course, and you can go ahead and go into the first slide, Kylie. Just to give you some background on what I do, social media manager, believe it or not, I manage our social media accounts. So CU Anschutz, our main platforms, these include, but are not limited to Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. We've also recently launched Blue Sky, and we are active on Reddit as well. We post a lot of our hard-hitting media stories in the r/science subreddit. And of course, as Karen kind of alluded to earlier, lots of changes happen pretty frequently on social media, whether that's leadership. Actually, yeah, we'll go with that. Leadership changes and lots of different decisions are made, but it's our job to adapt, right? So the main thing that we want to do, no matter what changes are happening on those platforms, is maintaining a cohesive university brand message across all of our social channels. And you can go ahead and go to the next one for me, Kylie. Thank you. And just a super quick overview of the Office of Communications. Our mission is really to elevate awareness of our amazing campus and amplify our brand through stories that highlight our excellence in leadership and also strengthen our reputation as one of the nation's best academic medical research institutions. We do that through a variety of ways, social media, of course, our weekly newsletter that our awesome content team works on, our media team that gets our researchers on the Today Show and NBC News. So a lot of different mediums contribute to that strong brand message. Yeah, you're good, Kylie. Thank you. So why does a strong brand matter? Many reasons. I won't go into detail on all of these, but some things that I do want to point out are national recognition, right? So you see a Johns Hopkins, you see a Harvard, you know where it's coming from, right? They've established themselves as premier institutions, and that's what CU Anschutz is. We are a premier institution, and that's how we want to market ourselves, right? So it's important that the language that comes out of our campus, the visual assets that come out of our campus, they're all telling that story of, hey, we are a worldly renowned medical campus. Another thing that I want to highlight is public attention to important issues and relevant research. So obviously, we have amazing research teams around campus who are all working to get that information out, whether it's recruiting for studies or just telling the story of something awesome that happened in your area. We want to bring as much public attention to those issues and that research that we can, right? And to do that, we need to do that in a way that is cohesive, and somebody can see it and say, that's coming from CU Anschutz. I know CU Anschutz and I trust CU Anschutz, right? So there's a lot of things that go into a brand, but I really want to hit the visual identity aspect of that. We can go to the next one, Kylie. So in between how you want people to perceive you and how people actually perceive you, somewhere in there lies your brand, right? So of course there's that gap, and every organization and brand wants to close that gap to have how you want people to perceive you really the way that you are perceived, right? But we live in a world with lots of different opinions, so everybody's going to see your brand differently. But we want to close that gap as much as possible. And one of the things, especially with visual identity, that's so important. Sorry, also I have a cat back here that's making noise if you hear any extra extra sound effects. But one of the things that can help close that, or that causes that gap, is inconsistent marketing, right? And that can be from all areas of campus. We want to maintain the same standard view of CU Anschutz in all of our visual assets. So that comes down to a wide variety of things. And we actually have a checklist that you can look at next, Kylie. So all of these contribute to a cohesive brand, right? And some of these things you might not even think about. So a quick checklist that all CU Anschutz communications and marketing must include, and that's all from the Central Office of Communications, but also all of our marketing departments around campus. All of the external things that come out of CU Anschutz marketing departments must have the correct name. So you have CU Anschutz Medical Campus, University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus, all those types of things. Then we of course have our approved logos. which I will, sorry, I meant to send this earlier. I'm actually going to drop our brand site into the chat so everybody can access that. Our approved logos can be found. They're free to use for everybody. Of course, in moderation, you can find those on our photo asset library image relay, but you can also be directed on how to find those through the link I just sent in the chat. And of course, that also includes our official CU Anschutz colors. So the tried and true University of Colorado black and gold. And then there's some accent colors you have options to use. You can also find on that website. And then of course, official typeface as well. That just means your standard font. And a lot of people might not think of the font being an important aspect of brand, but whether you believe it or not, font really does evoke emotion. And can really contribute to really emphasizing your brand. So we use a very crisp, clean Helvetica New, Roboto, and Source Sans. And once again, all of this can be found on that website to help you in creating your materials. So I just wanted to do a quick example. And I know we're a little short on time, so I'll go through this nice and fast, I promise. But quick example of two flyers next to each other, right? It kind of speaks for itself, but on the one on the right, you have really cute colors, maybe really bright. But this is for a study about detecting neurocognitive disease in its early stages. There's no logo on that one, right? We have no idea who's hosting it. The font is just not very serious. If I was going to an ice cream shop, I would love to see this. But if I was going to a serious study, I'd have no idea who was putting this on. And I don't know if I would trust it or think it was legitimate. On the left, the first thing I want to point out is the CU Anschutz logo, right? So that hits the checklist right away. We know who's running it. We know what institution is putting on the study. And then even in our copy, you can see it's layered differently. So we have our approved fonts that are just much more bold and crisp than the playful font on the right. And then our call to action is a lot more defined in that gold box. So the one on the left perfectly encompasses our entire checklist of, it hits all those boxes of our improved typeface, colors, correct name, and logo usage. So a quick overview of our CU Anschutz Medical Campus social media umbrella. Of course, we have our CU Anschutz overarching account at the top, and then we have our school account. So medicine, nursing, dental, public health, pharmacy, grad school, and then under those we have our departmental accounts, right? So that could be example for under medicine, physical therapy, division of hospital medicine, etc. So we have a lot of accounts growing. We also have research studies on the side that kind of exists by itself to do paid ads to recruit for your studies. We have a wide variety of accounts, and all of those have been approved through us. However, it's important that all the accounts have a purpose, and we'll go into that on the next slide. So all of these accounts have already usually established strategy. They have a budget to use. They already have their existing audiences. So a lot of times we'll get asked, and I'm sure Kylie's team gets asked this too, hey, we have this thing we want to run. Can we create an account real fast to run one thing on it? No, because honestly, that doesn't help you at all, right? All that's doing is putting more work on your plate and building a social media account from the ground up that it isn't in front of a lot of people when there already are utilizing social media account or already are existing social media accounts that you can utilize, such as the CU Anschutz Research Studies Facebook page, as well as your departmental accounts. So the reasons are they speak for themselves, but oversaturation is a big one, right? We don't want people being like, I saw this somewhere, but there's 30 accounts that it could be in, and I don't know which one to go to. And also tapping into existing established audiences is super important so you can actually get your content in front of people. Awesome. And then finally, I just want to go over the importance of utilizing our incredible clinical research recruitment team and their social media services. Expertise, efficiency, and consistency. This team knows what they're doing and they have the stats to prove it, as you've seen. Efficiency, they have the best idea of how to spend your budget. And then consistency comes down to branding. It has that established CU Anschutz look. It has the correct verbiage. This team they've perfected things so well in the last couple of years and truly know what they're doing. And they have obviously have my full endorsement. And I heavily encourage you to go through them because of those 3 reasons, as well as many others. So I do have one more slide, but it's just a quick plug for our design templates. I wanted to plug these really fast. These are available to everybody on campus, whether email, web, social. It's an easy way to stay on brand. These are already created for you. All you need to do is go in and add your own information. These are approved to already be or help you release branded content. Really requires not a lot of effort or energy to make a perfectly branded social asset or web asset. So we do want to plug these and make sure that you're aware. And yeah, sorry, I know we're right at 1 p.m., so I'll go ahead and cut off.
Awesome. Thank you, Jacob. I'm so sorry that we cut your time short, but we
worries.
had a lot of great questions that were being submitted. So any additional questions for Jacob about just using brand standards, any of the templates, the website that he submitted, or just Facebook accounts in general?
I'm not seeing any in the chat at this time. I'll give it a few seconds just in case.
Hey, Derek, it's going to take me longer to text. Just wanted to ask, using those templates, the only thing we can change is assuming the wording to match your study, or because the photographs, I'm assuming, are already approved for that use?
So I'll go ahead and chime in about like there's a couple different templates as well. So these are the main CUA shoots from the Office of Communications, and these are more for your standard like event promotion or like a lecture series promotion, things like that. Karen, do you want to speak to your templates for the research studies specifically?
Yeah, the templates that we use for social media are very much tailored to individuals that are running campaigns. We also, I believe what you're getting at is specific to flyers to post around campus for studies, which our team also creates. We don't really have templates for those because we don't want all of the flyers across campus to look exactly the same, because then they're not going to stand out when you're standing in the elevator. This is definitely separate from UC Health, for example, where they have like a very rigorous template that you have to follow. But that's something that our study team is happy to meet, or our team is happy to meet with study teams about and put that together. It's really tailored, as you know.
Perfect. Thank
Any other questions before we wrap up? Awesome. Well, like I mentioned, I think before some of you have joined, we post the presentation slides and the recording on our website. Derek will also be sending out an evaluation. We would love to get your feedback on the presentation. And with that evaluation, you'll get a link to the recording and the presentation slides directly in your inbox. So once again, thank you everybody for attending, and have a great rest of your day.